You never expect your whole world to change because you forgot your phone charger. It was a Thursday night. I'd just gotten back from a late gym session and realized I'd left my charger in the car. I headed back out, barefoot and grumbling, not realizing that my life was about to take a hard left turn. On the way back inside, I heard voices from the open kitchen window. My wife Heather and her friend Amanda were talking. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Honestly, I thought they were gossiping about work like usual. But then I heard my name. Heather laughed. Griffin's so clueless. I could be sleeping with half the city and he'd never notice. I froze. My heart pounded, like it didn't know whether to shatter or explode. Amanda asked something I couldn't hear, but Heather replied casually. It's been going on for years. You know Sutton? Yeah, since that corporate retreat in Napa. Poor Griffin thinks I'm a saint. Sutton. The name rang a bell. A married guy from her office. I remembered meeting him and his wife, Laura, at a Christmas party. They looked like the perfect couple, just like us. Except, we weren't perfect. And apparently, we never had been. That moment was like watching my marriage catch fire in slow motion. But I didn't barge in. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I backed away from the window and walked inside like I hadn't heard a thing. Because if Heather thought I was clueless, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her, pretending everything was normal, while every word of her conversation with Amanda looped in my head. I had two options: confront her and let it spiral into gaslighting and lies, or play the long game. I chose the long game. The next morning, I started my plan with a simple rule: get the truth, not just the confession. Heather was smart, manipulative, and had a flawless public image. If I wanted to beat her at her own game, I needed to outsmart her. Step 1. Surveillance. I bought a few discreet audio recorders and a second phone with a secure cloud backup. I planted a recorder in her car, one in the home office, and one under the couch in the living room. All places where she spent time talking on the phone or Zoom with colleagues. Step 2. Digital trails. I started checking our shared finances, travel expenses, cash withdrawals, the extra work trips she took. I installed keyloggers on our shared computer and synced our smart home's camera system to my private cloud. She never noticed. She was too confident. It took 2 weeks before I had what I needed. Recordings of her talking to Sutton, saying things like, "Griffin's so boring, Sutton. He still thinks I'm working late." Or, "You're the only one who really gets me." Classic. But the real jackpot came when she messaged Sutton. "If he ever finds out, I'll destroy him in court. I know how to play the victim." That message hit me like a freight train. Not just because of the threat, but because she meant it. This wasn't just cheating. This was someone who had already planned to ruin me if things went south. She had no idea I'd already started building the case that would burn her perfect little life to the ground. That night, I called my oldest friend, Daryl. Daryl didn't say a word for 10 solid seconds after I told him everything. Then, bro, I knew something was off about her. But this, his voice dropped. All right, what's the plan? Daryl had always been the ride or die type. He served in the Navy for 6 years, worked in cybersecurity now, and had a deep dislike for phonies, which Heather had apparently been all along. We met at a quiet diner on the edge of town the next day. I showed him the recordings, the messages, the bank logs. His jaw clenched tighter with each piece of evidence. "She's careful," I said, "but not careful enough." He nodded. "Good. Let's make her regret underestimating you." Together, we started refining the plan. Daryl helped me organize everything into folders, labeled, timestamped, and backed up to multiple secure drives. He even helped install a few better cameras in the house, disguised as USB chargers. If she tried to deny anything, we'd have enough digital receipts to bury her in court. But that wasn't the only piece of the puzzle. We needed someone else. Someone on the other side of the affair. Sutton's wife, Laura. I wasn't sure how to approach her. The idea of destroying someone else's life felt dirty, even if it was justified. But I also knew she was in the dark, just like me. If we were both victims of the same betrayal, we had a right to know. And maybe, just maybe, we could help each other. Daryl found her on Instagram. A post with Sutton at a wine tasting, smiling like he wasn't lying to her every single day. Her bio read, marketing exec, cat mom, wine lover, married to my best friend. I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked message. Typing that first message to Laura was harder than I expected. "Hi Laura, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about Sutton and my wife, Heather." I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before hitting send. I didn't expect a reply right away. Honestly, I wasn't sure she'd respond at all. But about an hour later, a simple ping came through. Excuse me? Who is this? I took a breath and replied carefully. My name is Griffin. I'm Heather's husband. I have reason to believe your husband has been having an affair with her for several years. I'm not here to hurt you. I just think you deserve the truth. There was a long pause. Minutes felt like hours. And then, call me. Now. She sent her number. My hands were actually shaking as I dialed. She picked up immediately. You better not be screwing with me, she said, her voice tight, like she was holding back a storm. I'm not, I said, and I can prove it. I didn't hold anything back. I told her how I overheard Heather's conversation, how I'd been collecting evidence, and how Sutton was a name that kept coming up over and over again. Laura didn't interrupt. She just listened, until I mentioned a specific text exchange I had saved between Heather and Sutton. I know that message, she whispered. I saw it pop up once. He said it was work-related. I could hear the tremble in her voice as the truth began to sink in. I can send you everything, I said. I think you and I might be in the same sinking boat. After a long silence, she finally said, then let's put holes in their boat. The next day, I met Laura in person. We agreed on a public place, a small coffee shop near her office. Neutral ground. Low risk. I got there early, with a flash drive in my pocket containing everything I'd collected so far. When she walked in, I could tell immediately she hadn't slept. Her makeup was minimal, but her expression was sharp, more fury than sadness, and I respected that. I brought my laptop, she said without greeting, sitting down across from me. I slid the flash drive across the table. She plugged it in. Silence. 5 minutes passed as she scrolled through audio clips, message screenshots, camera footage. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just absorbed it, like someone who had been waiting for reality to finally confirm the gnawing feeling in their gut. When she finally looked up, her voice was calm, steady. This is war. We talked for almost 2 hours. Sutton had told her he was working late, traveling for clients, dealing with burnout. She had even comforted him when he said he felt emotionally disconnected at home. He'd used her kindness as a shield for his double life. Laura didn't just want revenge, she wanted precision. I'm going to act normal, she said. He won't suspect a thing. Meanwhile, I'll track his movements, his phone activity, and sync everything to your cloud. This woman was sharp, like corporate-level sabotage sharp. She was already laying the groundwork for a coordinated strike, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. That night, I called Daryl again. She's in, I told him, and she's not messing around. He laughed. Good. Because this next phase, it's going to get messy. From the outside, Heather and I looked perfect. Smiling photos, dinner parties, curated Instagram posts of weekend getaways, and clinking wine glasses. Behind the scenes, I was living with a stranger in a silk robe. I started documenting everything. Her routines, her lies, her moods. I recorded when she left for meetings, when she came back late smelling like someone else's cologne, when she'd smile at me with those expertly rehearsed eyes. I became a ghost in my own home, silent, observing, and calculating. Meanwhile, Laura was doing the same. Sutton never suspected a thing. He was still sending Heather smug little texts like, "He's so blind. Makes this so easy." We were collecting enough ammunition to bury them both, but I wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. This wasn't about yelling or chaos. It was about timing. I needed everything to collapse at once. That's when Daryl had an idea. We do it all in one weekend, he said. A controlled implosion. He called it the exposure weekend. The concept was simple. Friday night, we leaked the affair to Heather's and Sutton's close friends. Selectively. Carefully. Saturday, family. Especially Heather's parents. The ones who worshipped her like she walked on water. Sunday, the final blow, a dinner party where everyone would be in the same room. Heather had already planned a couple's wine night that Sunday. She loved showing off her perfect life. Sutton and Laura were invited. Daryl would be there too, helping behind the scenes. We decided that would be the finale. I wasn't sure I could pull it off. But when I looked across the room at Heather, laughing at her phone, probably texting Sutton, I realized something. She already buried our marriage. I was just digging it back up to show everyone the corpse. Friday night arrived, and with it came phase one of the exposure weekend. Daryl had helped me prepare a series of anonymous messages. Nothing dramatic, just cold, undeniable proof. Screenshots, voice snippets, dates, a simple message to go along with it. You deserve to know who Heather really is. Ask her about Sutton. We sent them to a curated list. Heather's 2 closest friends, her yoga instructor, who weirdly doubled as her life coach, and her boss, a guy she constantly bragged about impressing with her professionalism. The same guy who once told me she was the most composed person he'd ever met. The reactions started rolling in like slow-moving dominoes. By midnight, one of her friends had texted Heather, "Is there something you need to tell me?" Heather spent the evening pacing the kitchen, phone in hand, eyes flicking from screen to screen. I sat on the couch pretending to scroll Reddit. She didn't say a word to me, just slammed a cabinet shut and poured herself a double glass of wine. By Saturday morning, it got worse for her. Her father called during breakfast. I only caught snippets of her side of the conversation. "What? Who told you that?" "No, it's not true. It's a smear campaign or something. I don't know who would." She turned to me then, eyes narrowed, scanning for any cracks in my poker face. I took a bite of my eggs and gave her a sleepy smile. "Everything okay?" She didn't respond. I knew her well enough to know she was spiraling inside. Her reputation, her carefully built kingdom of perfection, was starting to crumble. And then came Sunday, the dinner party, the night we planned everything around. I dressed like it was any other night. Calm, quiet, composed. But I'd already set the table for betrayal. Sunday night. The house was spotless, candles lit, wine decanted, music low and jazzy. Exactly the kind of ambience Heather lived for. She wanted to impress. Always. I watched her flutter around the kitchen in a perfectly tailored dress, greeting guests with that signature Heather charm. Bright smiles, air kisses, subtle status flexes. Sutton arrived with Laura, who, I must say, deserved an Oscar for her performance. She hugged Heather like they were old college roommates. No one suspected a thing. Well, almost no one. Daryl was there, casually sipping scotch and blending in like he belonged. He gave me a small nod from across the room. We were synced. Halfway through the meal, I tapped my glass with a spoon. Classic, "May I have your attention" move. Heather looked at me, puzzled. She wasn't expecting a speech. "Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight," I began. "It means a lot to Heather and me to have such close friends and family gathered under one roof." I smiled at her. She smiled back, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I just want to take a moment," I continued, "to talk about honesty, about loyalty, about trust." Heather's smile started to falter. Sutton shifted in his seat. I reached under the table and pressed a button on my phone. A Bluetooth speaker in the corner of the room chirped to life. And then, her voice. Griffin's so clueless. I could be sleeping with half the city and he'd never notice. Gasps. Forks hitting plates. The color drained from Heather's face like spilled wine soaking into white linen. Then Sutton's voice. "Let him find out. He can't touch you. You've got him beat in court if it comes to that." Silence. Everyone looked at Heather, and Sutton, and then at Laura, who stood slowly, reached into her purse, and dropped a manila envelope onto the table. "Divorce papers," she said. "Signed. And trust me, there's a copy of everything you just heard in there. Plus some extras." Heather stood up so fast her chair screeched against the hardwood. "What the hell is this?" she hissed. This is a setup." "No," I said calmly, rising from my seat. "This is the truth. Something you haven't told in years." She looked at me like I'd just stabbed her in the chest. Maybe I had, but I wasn't done yet. Heather stormed out of the room, heels pounding against the floor like gunfire. Sutton followed a moment later, muttering something to Laura, who didn't even flinch. She just sat back down and calmly sipped her wine. The rest of the dinner party was awkward, to say the least. Her friends avoided eye contact. Her boss, who'd been sitting 2 seats down from me, mumbled an excuse about an early meeting and left in a hurry. Daryl stayed behind to help me clean up. After we loaded the dishwasher in silence, he handed me a flash drive. "That's the master copy," he said. "Everything, just in case." "Thanks," I said. "I owe you." He grinned. "You owe me tacos." That's about it. The next few days were chaos. Not for me, but for her. Word spread faster than wildfire. Heather's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Her Instagram comments turned into a battlefield. People she had manipulated for years suddenly saw through her mask. Her boss put her on indefinite leave. Her friends? Half stopped replying altogether. The others offered hollow "Are you okay?" texts that clearly dripped with judgment. And Sutton? Well, Sutton's company found out too. Turns out, office romances that span years and cross multiple business trips can be a real HR nightmare. Laura made sure of that. By the end of the week, Sutton had moved out of the apartment he shared with Laura and into a motel. Heather, meanwhile, was holed up in our guest room, or what used to be our guest room. Because I filed for divorce that Thursday, I handed her the papers myself. She looked up at me with red, puffy eyes. Makeup smeared, hair a mess. The image of a woman who'd just watched her carefully crafted empire collapse. "You planned this," she whispered. "You waited." I nodded once. "You betrayed me first," I said. "I just documented it. If you thought Heather was going to accept defeat quietly, you don't know Heather." 2 days after I served the divorce papers, she lawyered up. And not just any lawyer. A high-profile, media-savvy type with a reputation for aggressive negotiation, which is legalese for make the other party bleed. She started spinning a new narrative. Griffin was cold, emotionally distant. He worked too much. Their marriage had been dying for years. The classic rewrite of history to paint herself as the victim. But here's the thing. I wasn't just ready. I was documented. Every affectionate text, every date night photo, every birthday gift, every "I love you" she'd sent while sleeping with someone else. I had it all. And it painted a clear picture. I was a husband trying, and she was a wife hiding. My lawyer, calm, collected, and expensive, simply smiled and said, "Let her try." Heather attempted to smear me during mediation, claimed emotional neglect, said I'd grown distant. Her lawyer made noises about spousal support, property division, even keeping the house. Then I dropped the binder. Not metaphorically, literally. A thick, tabbed, time-stamped binder of printed emails, texts, financial records, and transcribed recordings. Her lawyer flipped through 3 pages before going dead silent. Heather's face, I'll never forget it. It was the moment she realized she wasn't fighting a clueless husband. She was facing someone who had already won. That night, she tried one last trick. She sat on the edge of our bed, my bed now, and cried. Big, mascara-stained tears. Said we could maybe work through this, that she'd been confused, that love is complicated. I looked her in the eyes and said 4 words. "You already chose him." Then I walked out. While Heather scrambled to salvage the wreckage of her social image, Laura, Sutton's now ex-wife, was thriving in a quiet, satisfying kind of way. She didn't scream, didn't burn his clothes, or post dramatic TikToks. She just moved smartly. She'd sold Sutton's luxury watch collection, technically bought with marital funds, froze the joint account before he could drain it, and filed for divorce with such brutal efficiency that Sutton didn't even have time to hire a PR fixer. One of the most poetic moments came a week after our dinner party. Sutton showed up at Laura's office, unannounced, trying to apologize, to explain, to maybe even beg. She walked him out with security. Calm, cold, clean. She texted me later. He looked surprised. I think cheaters confuse shame with regret. I couldn't help but laugh. She was right. Sutton, like Heather, never expected consequences, just drama. They thought we'd scream and cry and break things. They didn't expect strategy. They didn't expect allies. I saw Laura again a few days later. Just to talk. Just to decompress. We grabbed coffee, swapped updates, shared a few "can you believe they said this?" stories. It felt human, grounded, honest. "You're handling this better than most," I said. She shrugged. "You did the hard part. I just followed your lead." "Hard part's not over," I said. "Court's next." She nodded. "Then let's win that too." We weren't just 2 people who got cheated on. We were 2 people who turned betrayal into an alliance. And it worked. Heather and Sutton broke everything trying to feel alive. Laura and I, we were building something real. Even if it was just friendship. Even if it was just peace. Divorce court isn't glamorous. It's cold, sterile, and filled with people trying to salvage what's left of their lives. Heather walked in wearing a crisp black suit, like she was attending a funeral, which, in a way, she was. Her reputation was already in shambles. The anonymous leaks, the fallout from the dinner party, even the HR investigation into Sutton's travel expenses had made their rounds in our social circle and beyond. But Heather still tried to walk tall. Fake pearls, fake smile, real fear in her eyes. She thought the court would believe she was the wounded one. She came prepared with rehearsed tears and character witnesses. But then my lawyer opened our folder. We had digital timestamps, phone records, location pings, messages, a financial trail of hotel stays and dinners she had claimed as client expenses. We had the receipts, literally. And most importantly, we had the audio. When the judge heard Heather laughing about how Griffin's so clueless, her entire narrative collapsed. You could feel it in the room. The shift, the discomfort, the disbelief. Even her lawyer's tone changed from aggressive to apologetic. Heather didn't say a word as the judge ruled. I kept the house. No spousal support. She would cover her own legal fees. A restraining order against Sutton visiting the property. It was over. She signed the final papers with a shaky hand, and for the first time since this all began, she didn't look smug. She looked hollow. On the way out, she stopped me in the hallway. "You really hated me that much?" I looked at her, the woman I once loved, and said, "No. If I hated you, I wouldn't have been so patient. I just finally respected myself more than I feared losing you." She didn't respond. She just walked away. After the courtroom dust settled, it felt like the world had gone quiet. Not empty, quiet. No more pretending. No more wondering who Heather was texting. No more living beside someone who saw me as a convenience. The silence was healing. I stayed in the house, changed the locks, repainted the bedroom, removed every photo of us and replaced them with things that made me feel alive again. Music, framed landscapes from places I still wanted to visit, and a small shelf with that infamous binder, now labeled closure. Heather moved out of town not long after. Word got around that she'd relocated to Chicago, probably trying to outrun her own fallout. A fresh start, they'd say. But I knew the truth. You can't outrun yourself. As for Sutton, fired, divorced, forgotten. Laura had finished that chapter with zero hesitation and now spent her weekends volunteering and traveling with her sister. We still text occasionally. Just two people who survived the same storm with their dignity intact. Daryl? Still my rock. Still hilarious. He never once said, "I told you so," even though he totally could have. Life didn't bounce back overnight. It took time. I took up hiking again, joined a photography club, started cooking meals that didn't involve frozen trays. And little by little, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. People always say revenge is sweet. But honestly, revenge is temporary. What lasts is rebuilding your life with your head held high, and knowing the one who tried to destroy you has to live with the truth that they lost you forever. It's been nearly a year since the night I overheard Heather's voice through that kitchen window. Sometimes I still think about how different my life could have been if I'd never gone back for that charger. If I'd stayed clueless. If I'd accepted the little lies because the big ones were too painful to face. But now I know, truth doesn't destroy people, it frees them. Heather lives in Chicago now. Last I heard, she's working freelance and trying to network her way back into social circles. But reputations, once shattered, don't glue back together so easily, especially when people remember who you were when the mask slipped. As for me, I sleep better. I laugh more. I've built a quiet, peaceful life that doesn't need to be Instagram perfect. No drama, no hidden agendas, just authenticity. I even started dating again. Slowly, carefully. I'm not in a rush. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just living. I've realized something powerful in all this. I don't need Heather to pay for what she did. Because the person I became, the man who stood up for himself, who refused to be manipulated, who walked away from a toxic marriage with his head high, that man is my revenge. And that's something no one can take from me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps the channel. And if you want more real-life stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching.